process using the same safety testing. It's not a new vaccine. The same way seasonal flu vaccine, although the strains change every year, it's not considered a new vaccine, it's a strain change. And likely, if H1N1 had arrived a few months earlier, it would have been included in the seasonal flu vaccine. So that's been a major misconception. And sometimes it's hard with DPH. We like are breathing this stuff all the time. And so it's interesting to talk to people who totally have a different conception of what's going on and what the risks are with the vaccine and who's making it and what's in it. So a lot of our job is making sure people's questions are answered. So these are some resources. The DPH website has a ton of information, as well as much of the data that I presented we update weekly and we post. And if you go to the DPH blog, you can find our weekly flu report, and it gets posted on Thursday afternoons, either late Thursday or early Friday. CDC website, also, it's equivalent to flu.gov. And on there, you can find national data weekly, as well as all the current recommendations. So, you can read stuff at the level that you want to read it at. There's stuff targeted to the general public, but all of the information for healthcare professionals is there. And so if you want more information, you can read those documents, all the guidance documents. And some of the guidance documents, particularly the antiviral treatment guidance, the school guidance as well, have technical reports accompanying them and go through the justification of the different recommendations that have been made. So that's where I'll stop. And I have time for some questions if anyone had any. Oh, no problem.
If the seasonal flu and other flu, they have lower death rates for pregnant than H1N1?
Yeah, and so the question is about pregnant women and seasonal flu. So it is recommended that pregnant women get seasonal flu vaccine, and pregnancy is considered a high-risk condition for seasonal flu. The thing is that it's not as many women of childbearing age who are getting flu during usual flu season. And so comparing the rates of death isn't probably the best thing. It's really rate of illness. And so there are fewer people under 65 who are getting sick. And so you're going to have fewer deaths among those people during regular seasonal flu. But they are at increased risk of severe complications during any flu season. What's compounding this problem is that that's who's getting impacted more is people in their 20s and 30s.
I'm just curious, as an epidemiologist, what do you think the most important for an epidemiologist in this emergency situation? I mean, I'm an epidemiologist too, but I never meet the emergency situation such like this, so I'm curious.
So I think that it's been really important to be able to, like the hospitalization system, getting that surveillance system set up. I think it's revealed all of the inadequacies that we have at the Department of Public Health and that most states have or cities have with what they're able to count and how they're able to analyze it. Like I said, with regular seasonal flu, we kind of know what to expect, and we have our systems in place, and we can pick up when things change. And I didn't even mention all of the in emergency department type syndromic systems that also are in place for seasonal flu. So I think it's been important to be able to modify what we normally do and bring on new ways of looking at the data. But to be honest, the data analysis for what we do is incredibly simple, and everything that I learn academically is not necessarily what I use in my job. And I think that it's important, I think, for people who study epidemiology or public health to get a perspective as to what applied public health means, and it's very different. The whole thing with the different baselines for the hospitalizations and this, I mean, that's sort of horrifying for someone who studies epidemiology because it doesn't make any sense. You can't compare what's going on when you have totally different denominators, but it's just a totally different type of work with different goals often. And then as we get more data, we can see more interesting trends. And so one thing we're looking at is whether people who are HIV positive are at very high risk of death from H1N1. We're not sure, but there's some data suggesting that. And so that's where we try to look at it, again, from an applied epi perspective, and it's not very statistically based. It's really looking at trends.
So as you mentioned, parents with children under 6 months of age have the privilege to get the vaccine. So I'm wondering where we can get it.
Yeah, so it's a good, and I meant to mention where people can get. So the best thing is to call your own doctor and find out if they have any, if you're in one of those priority groups. Your pediatrician you can also check with as well. Obviously, the baby won't be able to get vaccinated, but they may have doses for parents. I'm not sure. I mean, this is where the difficulty is we can't give you the perfect answer because there's not a lot of vaccine. The other thing is some health departments are now registered as doctor sites, essentially, for us. So that's how they're functioning. And so some health departments are providing vaccine for residents of their town. And so whatever town or city you live in, you can call your health department and ask them. And it's not really a big, wide public clinic. It's really targeted. And so some towns have done by appointment vaccination for pregnant women. So start with your doctor, then go to your health department, and keep on top of them. I mean, I think a lot of people have been calling their doctors every day to ask, have you gotten more? Can I get on the list? You know, I think a lot of doctors are trying not to maintain lists because then they've got the burden of all of these people they're supposed to call back. They just can't do it. And so some of it is being persistent, and unfortunately, that's the reality for the time being. And it will change. It's just it'll take a little while. I think there's a hope that, you know, by mid-late December there'll be enough for everyone, but there's no guarantees.
I wanted to request you to probably do a quick touch-up on the vaccine evaluation, whether it has been comprehensively evaluated, or if it has been, then what protocol it goes through. Well, I don't want to sound like Glenn Beck, but
No, that's fine. And I can only speak so much to it, but basically, it's been, in the trials that have been done, the adverse events are what you would expect for seasonal flu. So it's increased site inflammation, some people have fever, headache, that kind of thing. I mean, it's been non-severe adverse events typical to seasonal flu. And in terms of numbers of who's been in the trials, I don't know it off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of this is summarized on the FDA website. You can also access all the package inserts for all the vaccines on the FDA website and on the CDC website as well.
I actually spoke to the director of public health, Boston Public Health Commission, Dr. Nancy, and she said that we don't have a very aggressive move to administer the vaccine because evaluations have not been very straightforward or transparent. So
yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I think what I've found more personally is that there's a lot of misconception even among pediatricians, among other clinicians, in understanding that this is flu vaccine produced the same way seasonal flu vaccine is. And I think once you explain that to people, if they're comfortable with seasonal flu vaccine, they'll be comfortable with the vaccine. People who are not comfortable with vaccines at all are not going to be comfortable with any vaccine. I think if you understand that it's made the same way seasonal flu vaccine is, then you can appreciate for what it is. And, you know, I get my seasonal flu vaccine, and when I can get H1N1, I will. Because I think that the easiest way to think of it, for me at least, and I think it may be too simple for some people, and we certainly have larger discussions with people on this on a daily basis, is it's really fun to be sick, you know? I mean, and if you can prevent it, why wouldn't you? And the adverse risks, the serious adverse risks are so small compared to the likelihood of getting sick that for me, yeah.
at least in high-risk groups, yes.
Well, and especially in the high-risk groups, I mean, but I think that there's a lot of misinformation out there. Yeah, no problem.
Will the H1N1 vaccine added to the seasonal flu vaccine, sir?
I think that's what the assumption is that next year, for next year's seasonal flu vaccine, one of the 3 strains would be H1N1. They make that decision, I can't remember what month they make that decision, but basically they have to make the decision for what goes in seasonal flu vaccine, obviously months before the season hits, and it's usually based on what's going on in the southern hemisphere, because the southern hemisphere gets what we're going to get usually. It's very similar, and they get it several months earlier. But I think that's what many are assuming, is that that will be the recommendation, is to include H1N1 and to have one vaccine and obviously simplify everyone's lives. Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
No problem.
Informative introduction. And thank every one of you to